When I consider how my light is spent ere half my days in this dark world and wide, and that one talent which is death to hide, lodged with me useless, though my soul more bent to serve there with my Maker and present my true account, lest he returning chide. Doth God exact day labor light denied? I finally ask, but patience to prevent that murmur soon replied. God doth not need either man's works or his own gifts. Who best bear his mild yoke, they serve him best. His state is kingly. Thousands at his bidding speed and post o'er land and ocean without rest. They also serve who only stand and wait. That, young people, I'm opening up the show with because December 8th, it's going to be the birthday of John Milton, my all-time favorite writer and poet, author of Paradise Lost, the epic poem, which I think is the greatest work man could ever author. And I'm just a fan of Milton. He changed my life, changed my opinion, how I look at things, changed my major in college. So I thought I'd honor the birthday of the poet John Milton, intellect John Milton, man of God John Milton, who was born on December 8th in, I think, 1608. So that would make him, 414 years old if he was still on this earth. So had to get that out of the way. Other thing is, got my other technician, podcast engineer, Mr. Studio Matt Washington here today. My usual engineer Andy, his wife had a baby yesterday, had their first child. So congratulations to Andy and his wife. And so we are moving on today. I told you my guest is going to be part 2 interview with Misha Dameron. So she's coming up, and such an energetic, accomplished young lady. So stay tuned for that. Couple of quick things before I go and we get Misha on, because I know your time is valuable. Someone had sent me an email asking me who I voted for because of some topic I put on it, and I probably should respond to it. And I told the people when it was brought to me, and this is a true story, I don't tell my wife who I voted for. And I know in this day and age of everything is politics and political discord. People want to know that, but basically none of people's business who you voted for. And if you really wanted to share, that's good. So I don't do that. The other thing is, and speaking of political discord, and I got a couple more things we get on the Misha here. Speaking of political discord, I got this bright idea, and I'll talk about it more on some future show. Bring back the draft. If we want to help start uniting the country, bring back the draft. I think eliminating the draft has led to a lot of division in countries and make us as people forget that we're all in this together and we all have to sacrifice together. But I'll have some more on that. And then finally, one of my pet peeves is education. I think the 4 pillars of addressing a lot of these issues in our communities is economics, it's education, it's cultural as in family, and it's spiritual as in religious, or a moral compass. Those 4 things I think we need, and I don't think anything else is going to work myself. We got to put the family back together for sure. But education is one of them, and I've been saying for the longest, educators will not close the achievement gaps in these inner cities and in these tough neighborhoods. One of the reasons, because, and I'm just going to be frank about it, most of them got a liberal point of view on things and people and things like that, and they feel sorry for people and don't hold people accountable and don't have a lot of faith and confidence that people can overcome their circumstance and be whatever they want to be. So it starts with a basic attitude toward the kids that they're teaching, which I don't have that. But one of my pet peeves is the education achievement gap, which is not only a gap in education, it's a life achievement gap. Education achievement gap is a life achievement gap, and that's a pet peeve of mine. And I have a lot of experience with these schools and education, and I challenge any expert out there, any person with a PhD in education, been teaching for 25 years, and they think they know everything. Just give me a call and let's have a little dialogue about it. So that's one thing. The second thing is I've read in the papers where they are making excuses and for all the students that we're losing here in the Minneapolis public schools. Look, people, the reason we're losing students because they aren't good at educating our kids in the inner city. And there's a lot of people talking about that, but this is where I'm going. I'm for school choice, and we need to eliminate the monopoly that the public schools have on the education of our kids and bring competition there. And there's so many things I can point to, but I was reading recently, the Minneapolis Public School has an annual budget, I think, as someone said, of $900 million. Only 400 and some million, I think, is being spent on actually the education of the students. The rest of it is what we call overhead. And there's too much overhead in these schools. There's probably too many schools, and we need to make some tough choices coming up. We need to open up competition. We need to let parents have choices. I'm in favor of vouchers. I trust business people to make good business decisions, and a lot of this is business. So anyway, the point is that Minneapolis have an overhead rate of 50%. More money is going towards non-student type things than student type things. And I will end it with my somewhat arrogant kind of statement. But to all the educators out there who's blaming all kinds of reasons why they can't educate these inner city kids, and I'm serious about that, give me the money and I'll educate them. Guaranteed. If I don't, you can have the money back. And that should be the public schools attitude too. If we don't educate the kids, you can have the money back. But they're going to take the money and run like most government organizations because they don't have to be better. They don't have to compete. They're going to be in business, period. And I think we need to change that whole dynamics where if you aren't successful, you lose the money. And that's where I'm at. Once we start doing that, open up the competition, open up other things. A lot of time, education is really something that is more like indoctrination than education. And it puts you in a box of thinking. And some of these problems are going to require us to think outside the box. Coming up, Miss Misha Dameron, and we're going to continue her great accomplishments in life. We're going to talk about that a little bit. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thanks. All right, everyone. As promised, we have Miss Misha Dameron back for part 2. She had so much knowledge and inspiration to share. We couldn't do it all in one program, so we had to have this young lady back. We found out a little bit about her, just an entrepreneur into Airbnbs, auto rental. I probably can't remember all the things this young lady was doing or is doing. She's a mother of 3. I think she doesn't mind me letting you know that. She even told us her age. I'll just say 30-ish something there, and if she want to remind you the exact age, that'll be great. But 37?
Yes.
Okay. See, she just reminded you of that. Welcome, Misha. Welcome back. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well.
Okay. I think last time we left off, I think you were talking about just your whole approach to finding your happiness in life and how you do not do things that does not make you happy, and your routines and how you take care of yourself spiritually and mentally. And we'll start there, and then we'll move on to some other things. I know you got some book launches coming up. You're going to be traveling a little bit, and once again, just share a lot of your philosophy. You share, which I like too. Just some of the things you shared with us the last time, that you've already let your children know that you're not leaving them much of anything. I think I'm putting that correctly, and I kind of like that. And I tell people one thing I really appreciated. As soon as I was able to understand what my mom and dad was saying, they were preaching independence and taking care of yourself, and they was just putting a lot of good messages and values in me. So I really appreciate parents who really understand at an early age we need to start setting expectations for our children in life. So, how's the week has gone for you, Misha?
Oh, it has gone so well. As you can imagine, right before the book launch, we just have so many things to solidify and approve and all of that good jazz. So I've been busy with that, along with, of course, finishing up all of my stuff for graduation. Because the same day, and this was not coincidental, I promise, the same day I graduate is the same day that my book is released. So I've been trying to make sure that I get everything done and completed on all ends. So I've just been, really focused at trying to accomplish all of my goals. So my week has been a little busy, and I'm anticipating all of this to be over. And I cannot wait to get to Utah to let my hair down and just ski and eat some great food.
Wait a minute, Utah, hair down, ski, eat great food. We're gonna come. We're gonna circle back around to that because you know you're not meeting the stereotype here now, Misha.
What do you mean?
I don't know too many sisters out there skiing in Utah, and
Oh, come on.
oh, it is. Look, that just says something about my challenged childhood. But I tell well, let's not go any further. Tell us about this ski trip you're going on.
Well, I actually learned how to ski in Minnesota because, of course, we're from Minnesota. So we used to go to Buck Hill Mountain a lot for field trips in Minnesota. So I learned how to ski then. And it always have been a little bit of passion of mine. And then, of course, when I had kids, we went. And it's just my youngest who was born in Texas. She just turned 10 on December 4th. But he is the youngest of the group. And he never seen snow until he was 5. So when I seen his reaction to snow, I was so overwhelmed. It was just the funniest thing. And I fell in love. And ever since then, we either go to Colorado, Steamboat. We've been to Aspen once, but we normally go to Steamboat. So we go to Colorado, we go skiing and snowboarding. And this particular year, we decided, because we don't really do Christmas, we don't celebrate like with all the gifts and stuff like that. We used to, but now we decide to just take trips as families for birthdays and holidays, So this year, I actually got invited to Utah for with a chef to stage and, kind of review his restaurants and his cuisine and his style. And so I just merged the two together. And I said, I've never been to Utah to ski, and they have great resorts. I mean, great, fabulous. And so I decided to take the entire fam out to Utah and combine the both. So I'll get a chance to work and stage and eat some great food there with one of the chefs that I kind of admire. And then we're going to go snowboarding and go skiing and enjoy just the atmosphere in Utah.
I love it. I love it. Let's remind the audience, I guess, of some of your background because you have extensive experience in the food industry and just the hospitality industry, period. Why don't you remind our audience the type that you've been a chef and things like that and your involvement in the past in the restaurant and entertainment business? What all have you done and achieved there for those who may not have caught our first interview? Part of our interview.
Sure. So yes, so I became a chef very, very early on in my career. I wanted to be an FBI agent. And at the time, I was just now becoming a mother and decided that maybe that wouldn't be the best, form of action. And so I decided to go with my next best passion, which was cooking. So I ended up attending Le Cordon Bleu, getting my associates, and then I worked at Disney World, changed my life, completely eye-opener, had a pleasure. And then I decided to go back to school and get the bachelor's for business and restaurant management. So that's when I pretty much really started my career, been in management ever since I was like 21, and worked in so many places, done so many great things, worked for corporate America, worked for franchises, and ended up the last 6 years of my career in the chefing world. I was a executive sous chef for a hospital. Great experience. It was very interesting. Learned a lot. and retired myself from there last year. So yeah, so I have a lot of experience, and I'm very passionate about cooking. I still keep in contact with a lot of the people in the industry, and I still deal. One of my streams of income still have to do with me being a chef. So yes, I actually even offer personal chefing experiences and personal chef for my Airbnb business as well, which is very lucrative because for one personal chef session, that can be anywhere from $600 to $1,500.
So you mentioned, I caught that, different streams of income here, which says to me that you're very much conscious of personal financial planning. And my question is, how long have you been conscious of personal financial planning, and at a very young age, and where did you get it from?
Well, no, not at a very young age. I was not like many African American kids and even adults. I was not taught about credit and finance and business credit and all that good jazz. I acknowledged it probably around when I was 25 that something had to change, and it did. And I started educating myself and doing a lot of research and moving forward that way. My first wealth coach was JT Fox, and that is when I first paid and solicited my first ever wealth coach.
And as far as wealth is concerned, do you mind sharing, in general, or however much you feel comfortable with, what are some of your goals in that area as far as wealth, and once you accumulated your plans for that wealth?
The My only plans when it comes to wealth is to make sure give back and serve others.
All right. Oh, that's a good answer. That's a great answer, as a matter of fact. Now, before we move on, because we got a lot of good things to get into here, I'm not going to skip over your experience at Cordon Bleu Culinary Art School. And this is where I'm coming from. It's kind of like a slight curveball, but I'm comfortable that you can handle this very easily. Now, you've lived in Minnesota and you live down south in Texas. My question for you, Misha, isn't the food taste a lot better down south than up here in Minnesota?
You have your staple items that just taste better in different regions of where you're at. And you'll learn that as a chef too. It's just like how, serving size is completely different than the United States than over in Europe.
Right, right, right.
It's the same thing. So it just depends on what you are comparing it to.
So it's just probably a figment of my imaginations that most of the food up here in Minnesota, to me, have very little taste in it, and that they, especially when it comes to fried food, which a lot of Minnesota doesn't like, and they fry everything and down south basically, but it will look just so perfect, and you bite into it, and there's no seasoning at all on it, and you gotta. It seems like Minnesota philosophy is the flavors in the sauce. They'll give you some sauce to go with it that you dip it in, but the meat itself has no flavor. But like I say, I'm gonna say that's just a figment of my imagination. Like, I'm not on to something here, Misha. Don't is it totally my imagination that you northern Minnesota chefs don't appreciate flavor?
You know what? I wouldn't say that. I would say it's based on their goal. And sometimes things are prepped incorrectly. When I say that, I mean sometimes people season their chicken on the skin versus seasoning the chicken and the flour. People don't understand how big of a difference that is. And it's the same thing with the buttermilk. You want to, when you're frying chicken, you want to season all components and you do not want to over season. So if we say use 4 teaspoons, you want to divide that between all three. You want to divide that between your flour, your buttermilk, and your actual meat itself, so that it's not too salty. But it's just about making sure that you're following the proper prepping procedures before you're cooking it to ensure that your food is seasoned correctly. And everyone go for different things. Some, like for me, I no longer cook with salt. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, I know your food is going to be so bland. No, my food is never bland because I understood the assignment. So if you go to a health conscious restaurant, you may not, you have to adapt to what they're serving. But I also feel like as a chef, no matter what restaurant I work in, I'm going to make sure that I taste all of my food and make sure all of my food is delicious. But does that mean the next person is going to feel like that? Absolutely not. But that's why you offer salt on the side, if or hot sauce and stuff like that. But for certain chefs who know that their food is top of the line and that it's flavorful, they would actually say no, it's perfectly fine. I've known some steak houses that do not serve steak sauce because they say my steak is perfect and you will eat it just like this.
I don't want to spend too much time on this, Misha, but you said something very small, perhaps, but I've been wondering about all my life, probably, so I can't just let it pass. You mentioned seasoning the meat versus putting the seasoning in the coating or whatever. And so, explain to me from a trained professional culinary artist, what difference does that make? Because I've been curious about that all my life, and most recipes I see have you mix it in the coating itself rather than on the meat. And why is that?
It's because it's stages. Meat is just like skin. So let me explain it this way. So if you put seasoning just on your meat and you put it in flour that's not seasoned, when you fry it, the first thing you're going to taste is the flour, and it's going to taste like nothing. Okay. If you remove the skin, then you're also removing the flavor because you just put that seasoning just on the skin and that was it, right? So now you just sealed in your seasoning between two layers. So your actual meat did not receive it because it's on the skin, and then the flour is covering up the seasoning that you rolled it in. So that's why sometimes you do not taste seasoning on your chicken if you do not season the flour. The next step, the reason why a lot of chefs that are very intellectual, they understand that when they do fried chicken, they either brine it or they allow it to marinate overnight in seasoned buttermilk. Right. And this is because a lot of people, believe it or not, a lot of people don't like the skin of fried chicken. I love it. Okay. I love my skin of my fried chicken. But they understand that some people will pull the skin off of fried chicken and eat the chicken. And in order to ensure that every single piece of your meat is seasoned and delicious, when you marinate that overnight, even if people remove the skin off of their chicken, guess what? They're still going to taste those seasonings that you marinated or brined your chicken in. So when frying chicken, it is definitely a science to make sure that your meat is flavorful and delicious. And the step one is brinding or marinating overnight in seasoned buttermilk. Two, making sure that you also season your flour, because your flour is like that top coat that's going to seal in all the flavor. So if your if your flour is not seasoned, it's going to taste bland. So you want to season all components of the process. You want to put seasoning in all stages of the process.
Let's talk about your books that you have coming up, Misha.
Well, my first two that will be dropping in 9 days. The first one is How to Start Your Airbnb and Other Side Businesses Associated with Your Airbnb. And then the second book is How to Have a Car Rental Service through Turo, Uber, and a lot of more other car rental sites and stuff like that. But basically how to build up your own industry in the car rental space. So those two books are already completed. We just finished solidifying them today and approving everything. Actually, it was yesterday, sorry. So those books are already done, signed, complete, and we're ready to go. So those are dropping within the next 3 months because I just have a lot of things I'm doing in between then, so I can't get it done as soon as I want. But the next one will be my cookbook. It will be my 50 most comfort foods with a twist, of course, how I make mine. So that cookbook will be out probably by, I want to say, spring break. If it's before then, of course, I'll keep you posted. You can always follow me on my social media links to, keep in the loop. And then my last book, which I'm most proud of and was the most emotional, believe it or not, was How to Survive a Toxic Corporate America Job.
Well, let's start there. Give us a 2 or 3, since we're talking corporate, give us 2 or 3 bullet points, Misha, on how to survive a toxic corporate America job?
Well, I'll give you 3 letters, well, 4 letters that really sums up the entire book. FUCK, right? It's an acronym, so please do not blur this out. F is faking unity, communicating kindly. So the entire book is basically circling around if you're in a toxic work environment, how to plan and execute your exit, or how to fix what's going on in the workplace by doing those 4 things. And within the 4 bullet points, of course, there's a few chapters in each, but that's pretty much the entire gist of the book, is about remaining calm. And that's where I learned to meditate, because before I went to work, I had to learn how to meditate and calm my mind and spirit before surrounding myself with other people.
So there's a picture emerging here, Misha, of you juggling home life with 3 children, getting them back and forth to school. You're cooking and doing some of the household things that all parents, head of households, have to do. You're writing books. You're mentoring and being mentored. You're starting up all of these businesses. How are you doing this? And I mean, I'm trying to figure out how many hours a day are you sleeping? Are you getting your proper sleep, Misha? Let me ask you that first of all.
No, sir, of course not. I'm getting
Okay, I like that answer.
I'm getting 2 degrees at the same time, running 6 businesses, mentoring others, and writing books all at the same time. But no, what I tell people, though, seriously, is we all have the same 24 hours. I just use all of mine sometimes.
Right, right. And you mentioned preparation, the spiritual aspect of life and what you're doing. I do know you have a regular morning routine. Why don't you share some of that with our audience, as much as you're comfortable with your morning routines, as far as preparing for the day and getting yourself spiritually, mentally, physically ready to take most advantage of your 24 hours in a day?
Absolutely. So I start my day, sometime on vacation, sometime not, depending on what the vacation entails. But no matter what, I always start my day the same. I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I meditate. I do yoga or stretch, exercise, whatever I need to do. Of course, you do your, bodily care. And then, well, actually, I should start off by saying, when I first wake up, I pray first, right? Like, we pray. And, I'm sorry for some of the non-believers out there, but, I'm just giving my routine, right? So I wake up, I pray, I meditate, I work out, I shower, and then I proceed in, it's work, but it's not work. I make sure to check all of my emails and line up all of my replies first. And that really helps me out, believe it or not. Of course, I always check the stock market, because, that's where a lot of my money is. So if you're looking for my wealth, you won't find it. No, I'm just kidding. But that's where, I keep an eye on the stock market, which is why I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning as well. So I do that, and then I get ready for the day. So by the time my kids get up, or even if I have to put out any fires, so if there's an emergency with one of my businesses, of course I respond to those. But because I wake up so early in the morning and I'm calm, collected, I've already made my bed, I done already brushed my teeth, I done showered, I done worked out. When I have to address a lot of these things, I am so calm and collective and poised. A lot of people are like, how are you doing it? Well, I take care of myself first before I take care of everyone else.
That's a good philosophy. Now, what are some of the lessons we talked about? And we're going to respect your time and our audience time here and try to wrap things up. What are some of the lessons that you are passing on to your children, and what type of goals and hopes you have for your children?
There's 5 main things that I have taught my kids to really move forward in life. But to make this a little bit shorter, I want to say I truly teach them to do not hold any grudges or anything towards people with the way that they treat you, to allow that to taint your character or who you are in life. So sometimes people will be malicious towards you or do things towards you to try and get a certain reaction. And life, as we all know, is 90% of, your action versus reaction, so it's all about making sure that you take control over your life and how you respond to things. And you realize that life becomes so much easier. So self-control is what I teach them: being respectful, self-control, and accountability. Because when you start taking accountability for everything in your life, it changes everything.
I agree 100% with that. So, what are some of your goals as we look, 10, 20 years down the road, Misha? Some of your goals, business wise, personal, or whatever. Want to share a few of your goals with us?
Oh, it's so simple. I just want to leave the world a better place than how I found it.
That's beautiful. And I do understand, and we had a conversation about this, is that, and you mentioned it already earlier, that you really want not to accumulate wealth for personal expenditures and stuff, but to help the world be a better place. And I really appreciate that. And because, one thing, and you talked about corporate, once I got outside of corporate and got into just the mainstream world of commerce, just people and this money thing, man, and most people that I meet, they want money for personal things and bling and big homes and big cars and things like that. And it's always nice to find a person who's similar to me. I look at it for what I can do to help other people, and that's so refreshing. All right, so you got the book launching. There's a rumor that you may even be in Minnesota sometime soon, away from down in Texas. I've heard a rumor there. Is that rumor? Is there any truth to that rumor, Misha?
That is very true. I will, and the last interview you asked me, "Are you coming to Minnesota?" I said, "Absolutely not."
You sure did.
I had no plans on coming to Minnesota, but that's how my schedule is. And by the grace of God, that's why I love being my own boss and being an entrepreneur, is that when people summon me, I am there. I'm able to be there. When there's a need, I'm able to go. My sister, she became an entrepreneur overnight. Her spouse had to, he went away for a little bit, and she had to take over his shoe business. And she was like, "I really need your help." So I'll be flying out to Vegas to help her with her shoe store, which is so awesome because my son, he's actually in that field as well. And then, of course, with the whole Minnesota rumor, which is not a rumor, it's fact. I was actually invited to the governor's luncheon, and that was not anticipated. So before I go to Utah, I will be in Minnesota for, well, actually 3 days. I will be there for 3 days to attend that, and since my mentor there, she's one of the ones that helped me. She's one of the editors and stuff with the book. So I decided to also launch my book in Minnesota, since I'll be there the day before, well, the 2 days before that it's launched. So I'll be launching my book in Minnesota.
I think you're a very impressive young lady. Got a lot of things going. In fact, you got so many things going. I don't know where to end that. In fact, we're going to keep the invitation open at any time as you go through life and achieve these great things. And I'm going to say, I know her. And I'm going to say, see, can I get her back on my podcast to share some of her achievement and her positive. It's just a lot of positive stuff and a lot of good ideas, and share that with our audience because a big part of my audience, they just hear so many negative things, and it's good to find someone with a great attitude, who has an attitude, I'm not going to let anything stop me, I can do this myself, it's all within my control, who has some spiritual type foundation, who have financial goals and wealth goals and things, who have being a great parent. So you're the package here as far as talking to our community, and I'm very thankful for that you gave us the opportunity to introduce you to our audience, because they need to see people like you who's doing those type of great things. And so many things that's quote unquote in the news is so much negative stuff. In fact, and I'll just say it, I wasn't intending to say it, but it came to my heart, and I'm going to say it anyway. One of my pet peeves, I tell people, 9 out of 10 story or more that you see on our people it's about racism and not about achievement and hard work and sacrifice and education. One last thing I did think about, and I'll be derelict if I don't bring it up right quick, and it has to do with the you're writing a book on how to start a car rental company. I think you said. And my question there is this a good time for car rental? I understand, the brand that comes to most people's name is Hertz when it comes to car rental. They've been struggling, the pandemic and the low rental. Have two-part question. Have your business Were your business affected by the COVID and all the downturns and things that was going on in the economy? And two, where do you see the car rental business going, given some of the challenges that Hertz have had recently?
Well, I mean, that's a two-part question. But the first part of that question is there's busy and slow seasons to every single industry, right? So you have to ride the wavelength of what's going on. So if gas prices go up, that's a problem. Gas prices go down, that's a good thing. So you have to kind of know the economy. You have to know what's going on. But there's ups and downs in every business. But at the end of the day, the reason why I wrote that book is because most Americans have an average, especially if you're middle class, most Americans have 3 cars, right?
Right.
And one is going to always sit there. So for me, it's so embarrassing to say we have 8, right? So why not put those to work? And I told you how that came about. Not only did I already have Airbnbs and I was offering my personal chefs, but one of my clients at the time that was at one of my Airbnbs, the car rentals were too expensive and they were not able to get a rental car to get around. So they was doing Uber, and they just brought that up to me. And I was like, hey, well, I have a car if you want to rent it. They was like, absolutely. And that was just a whole nother stream of income. And that was right after I read a book and a quote. And it was my favorite mentor in the back of my head. He doesn't know he's my mentor, but he's my mentor. His name is Warren Buffett. I don't know if you know him. He's a pretty big deal in my world. But he said that a lot of people collect liabilities and think that they're assets. And then, of course, Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he said, if you ever want to become financially free, you need to turn all of your liabilities into assets. And I really took that to heart. And I said, how can I? And I started doing that. I started turning every single liability in my life into an asset. And believe it or not, if I could have done that with my kids, I would have done that too. But I actually did, because I have a home-based business, so I pay them up to $12,000 a year, and they use that for whatever they want, school clothes, this, that, and I get to write that off, and it's completely tax-free, right? But it's one of those things where I learned how can I turn any liability that I have control over into an asset? And that's when I put my very first car on Toro and a few more other sites, and I made about $8,000 in 2 months.
Wow. So keep doing what you're doing. Don't forget about us when you're hanging out with Oprah and Warren Buffett and all those folks and stuff like that. And don't be and if I text you, don't be telling me to have my people call your people and stuff like that. Okay, Misha. But keep up the great work. In fact. And I'm sincere. I'm just amazed by all the things you have accomplished, all the things you're working on, and all the things you're gonna accomplish. And so keep doing it. And hopefully, I'll get a chance to see you when you're in Minnesota. You have a great evening. Have a great dinner with your family. Looking forward to seeing you when you get in town. And keep up the great work. You're just doing it out there. And I'll keep track of your career and what you're doing. Like I said, I know it's going to be some great things. So, audience, Misha Dameron, entrepreneur, mother, chef, author, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you, Misha, for being our guest.
Most of all, philanthropist, okay?
Philanthropist and servant of God. So thank you for being with us, and I really enjoyed both of our parts of our interview. And let's not make it this the last time. So you have a great evening. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. So have a great evening.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you.